which component controls the communication between the CPU and other components on the motherboard? Let's figure it out here. Okay, so there's two things that we're working with: CPU, motherboard, and we're thinking about the communication between them. So which handles this? Well, what handles this is going to be either the Northbridge or Southbridge. We'll come back to this in a second, but just think about this. Just have that in the back of your head. So what answers are not going to be an answer? Well, first is RAM. RAM is a temporary storage, and it's temporary memory used by the CPU to store data for quick access to grab. So that's completely out of the question because it doesn't control communication between CPU and motherboard. BIOS is also even more out of the question because BIOS, all it does is initialize the hardware during your boot up. Oh, that's it. It's firmware that is set to talk to the components to be like, hey, you good, everyone's there, all right, start the computer. But it doesn't facilitate any communication between CPU and motherboard. So what else we got? CMOS. Well, CMOS is not going to be an answer as well because CMOS actually stores BIOS settings, and it includes system time, it includes configurations, but it doesn't control any communication between CPU and motherboard. So what's the last one? Well, it's going to be chipset. So the chipset, it's responsible for managing the communication between not just the CPU and the motherboard, but the components connected to it. So the chipset controls the CPU, communication between the CPU, RAM, GPU, other storage devices, and peripherals that you plug into your computer. And the reason why I said pay attention to Northbridge and Southbridge is because that Northbridge and Southbridge is the communication between these devices. Chipsets consist of Northbridge and Southbridge. Southbridge is more of an older motherboard thing, but can still be the case. And that's pretty much it. Southbridge and Northbridge is controlled by the chipset, and chipset is what facilitates the communication between CPU and other components on your motherboard.